After talking to over thousands of patients on Ozempic and various GLP-1 medications and coaching them through lifestyle strategies, I kept hearing the same patterns over and over. The exact same things that they all wish someone had told them before they started. Some of these were surprises that nobody warned them about. Some were beliefs, things the internet told them that turned out to be completely wrong. And here's what got me. A lot of these people didn't fail because of the medication. The medication worked. They struggled because of what was happening around the medication that nobody prepared them for. And the beliefs that they were carrying, well, those beliefs were quietly doing more damage than any side effect ever could. Before we get into it though, I'm Dr. Jones, DC, and I lead the coaching department at our nationwide GLP-1 and weight loss clinic, where I work alongside our medical team. And this passion of mine comes from losing over 100 pounds myself, and now I work with my medical practitioners helping people do the same. So today, I'm gonna share the patterns that I found, the brutal truths, the myths that burned people the hardest, and what the people who actually kept the weight off did differently than everybody else. Because there is a group that figured it out. And what they did was almost opposite of what most people try. But let's start with the thing that blinded more people than anything else, and it has nothing to do with the medication itself. So the number one thing that blindsided people, well, it wasn't side effects. It wasn't a plateau. It was actually the system. Insurance, pharmacy rules, pricing, the part that's outside of your control entirely. Here's what I mean. You get on the GLP-1 medication, it's working, the weight's coming off, you're feeling amazing, and then one day you get a letter from your insurance company, your employer changes your plan, and suddenly the medication that you've been building your entire plan around is gone. Finito. Dunzo. No warning whatsoever, no transition plan, just gone. What does this all mean? You need a game plan. And in a second, I'm gonna show you the exact mistake people make right after that. The one thing that makes regaining weight almost automatic. And this isn't rare, okay? Medicaid coverage for GLP-1 medications, it's like patchwork. Some states cover them broadly, others restrict or exclude them for weight loss, and that landscape, it keeps shifting. The FDA said the Semaglutide shortage was over way back in February 2025. That's great, right? Well, once that shortage was officially over, they started enforcing old rules that limited compounded GLP-1 access, and that's where a huge number of people had been getting more affordable access. That door closed, and if you're paying for this medication yourself, Novo Nordisk now offers Ozempic and Wegovy direct to patients for a couple $100 a month. But that's a newer program. Before that, without insurance, these medications would run over $1,000 a month. Now, if you're paying for your GLP-1 medications, you might be thinking, I'm not worried about the coverage. This doesn't apply to me because I'm out of pocket. But here's the but that most people actually miss. It does apply to you. Faster results and the lowest dose that still works can mean you're spending significantly less on medication over time. The people that I talked to who built a proper foundation, many of them got to a lower maintenance level dose that costs a fraction of what they started at. And the people who didn't stayed on higher doses for longer, spending much more money, and their outcomes, it wasn't as good. So what happens when access gets interrupted or when you're bleeding money on doses that you don't need to be on? This is what people told me, and it's ugly. Your body doesn't care why you stopped or why you're cutting corners. It just knows that the support changed. Food noise comes roaring back, cravings spike, and if you don't build a foundation underneath that medication, you've got nothing to catch you when you fall. I see this in our clinic constantly. Patients call us panicked because their coverage changed, their pharmacy shut down, or they're burning through their money on doses that are way higher than they need to be. And the ones who had no backup plan, those are the ones who struggled the most. The point isn't to scare you. The point is you can't assume that what you have today is what you're gonna have in 6 months from now. And the people who did well, they planned for disruption and they built a foundation that reduced what they needed in the first place. Now, if any of this is starting to hit home with you, and if you're realizing now that you don't have a backup plan for access, or if you're spending more than you need to on doses that could be lower, this is what we offer our free discovery calls for. You'll get to speak with one of our advocates who can look at your situation and help map out a smarter path. You can either text number on the screen, or you can check out the link in the description if you want to explore that. But right now, we have to get into the beliefs, because what I'm about to share burned more people than any insurance letter ever could. So here's what I found. When I asked people what burned them the hardest, it wasn't the side effects, it wasn't the injection. It's the stuff that they believed going in that turned out to be completely wrong. And I'm gonna go through the biggest ones because there's a good chance that you believe some of these right now. Okay, number one, once I build good habits, I can come off the medication. This is one of the more common beliefs. And I get it. It makes sense on the surface. Build the habits while the medication is helping and then step away. But here's what people actually experienced when they try to do this. The food noise, that constant background hum of thinking about food, it came back within weeks of stopping, even if they built good habits. Now, can you lower your doses or come off? Yes, I've seen it happen. A lot, actually. But the people who actually pulled it off didn't just build habits. They did strategic metabolic work. They went after insulin resistance. When your body stops listening to insulin, they protected their muscle mass. They built the foundation that that gave their body the best chance for holding on to the weight loss on its own. That's a very different thing than I eat healthy now, so I should be fine. The people who assumed habits alone would carry them, they were the one blindsided the hardest. And the other variable is just the genetic component of obesity. No matter how hard you execute even my recommendations, if you have this propensity for obesity from a genetic component, you're probably still going to need some amount of GLP-1 support in the future. We call that microdosing, and I have plenty of other videos where I talk about that. In fact, if you want to learn more about the microdosing protocol, you can check out that video right there. Okay, number 2, higher doses equals better results. This one's dangerous. The people that I talked to who chased higher doses without building a foundation underneath, they tended to have worse long-term outcomes than the people who stayed on the lowest effective dose. More medication is not the answer when you haven't built the foundation. Insulin resistance, muscle, and proper fueling to make the dose that you're actually on work. Okay. Number 3, the medication does the hard work. No, the medication buys you a window. That's it. A window where your appetite is lower, your cravings are more quiet, and your body is more responsive. But if you don't use that window to fix what's actually broken, your nutrition, your muscle mass, your metabolic health, how well your body handles fuel, and how well it burns it, then you're building a house on a shitty foundation. And when that window closes, the house comes roaring down. Okay, number 4, and this is the one that shocked me the most, I should eat as little as possible while my appetite is low. That sounds logical, all right? The medication kills your appetite, so people ride 800, 900, 1,000 calories a day thinking that they're winning, but here's what's actually happening at a metabolic level. When you crash your calories that low, your body can adapt in ways that actually work against you, blunting your progress even while the medication is helping. Your metabolism starts adapting, burning fewer calories and ramping up hunger signals to fight back against the restriction. And now the GLP-1 is working to improve your metabolic health, but overly aggressive restriction can undermine the sustainable results that you're after. You're working against your own medication. The people who kept the weight off, they ate more strategically, not less. And in the next myth, I'll show you the sneaky way that people think that they're crushing it while their long-term results are quietly getting worse. Now, quick thing, if this just kind of flips something for you, if you've been under eating on your GLP-1 medications thinking that you've been doing everything right, hit that subscribe button right now because we put out 4 videos per week breaking down exactly this kind of stuff. The things that nobody's telling you regarding these medications, how to actually make them work long-term. Now let's keep this rolling because myth number 5 is where a lot of people accidentally wreck their long-term results. If the scale is going down, it's working. This is the one that quietly destroys people because the scale is going down. You're celebrating, you're posting progress pics, and you should celebrate. Congratulations. But here's what nobody's telling you. Studies show that 15 to 40% of the weight that you're losing could be precious muscle mass instead of just the fat that you want to lose, especially when you're not doing proper resistance training and consuming enough protein. Muscle isn't just about looking toned. Muscle is one of your body's most important tissues for processing blood sugar and maintaining insulin signaling, how well your body responds to insulin. Every single pound of muscle that you lose dismantles the metabolic machinery that keeps weight off long term. You're winning the battle and losing the war. And the people who kept it off didn't just watch the numbers drop. They protected their muscle from day number 1 because once it's gone, rebuilding it is probably 5 to 10 times harder than preserving it was to begin with. Okay, number 6, I can figure out maintenance when I get there. The people who struggled the most with weight regain had one main thing in common: zero maintenance plan. They spent all their energy on the weight loss phase and they gave zero thought to what comes after. The people who kept it off, they started planning for maintenance right from the get-go, not from month number 6, not when I hit my goal, month number 1. We're going to come back to this because what they actually did was fascinating. Okay, so stay with me. Number 7, my insurance and access will stay the same. I'm including this here because it was one of the beliefs that people carried, the assumption that things would stay steady. It's not. And the ones that assumed it was, they had no plan B when the rug got pulled. And it gets pulled hard, trust me. Number 8, and this one's different from the reset because it's not about the medication, it's about identity. Using GLP-1s is cheating. I heard this constantly. People calling it a shortcut, people hiding that they were on it, people feeling shame about using a medical tool to fix a medical problem. And here's what I found. The people who carried that cheating narrative, they tended to struggle the most because when you believe that you're cheating, you don't build the foundation. You don't invest in the process. You hide your use instead of optimizing it. Don't listen to the noise and focus on what matters to you. You know that feeling? I ain't got time for that. I don't have time for the haters. Or if you love that movie with Franco, The Interview, they hate us because they ain't us. Just remember that. Okay, the people who treated it as a medical tool, no different than blood pressure medication or insulin, and built the foundation around it, they tended to see more sustainable results. See, the medication doesn't replace discipline, it gives discipline something to actually work with. Okay, now you know what not to believe. But here's where it gets really uncomfortable, because what came up next over and over was what happens when you try to maintain, space your doses, or stop. But I got a quick question for you. Do you want me to make a full video breaking down exactly how we help patients transition into maintenance microdosing? The exact process, the decision points, and the timeline. Earlier, that video was about microdosing in general, but this is the actual transition plan so that microdosing can be possible. If that's going to be interesting to you, let me know in the comments. I can put that one out here pretty soon. Okay, so this is part of the conversation that got heavy, because everything that I talked about so far, the system traps, the myths, those are problems that you can see coming if somebody warns you. But maintenance is where people got lost in ways that they didn't even expect. Okay, so here's the pattern. You lose the weight, you feel incredible, and then you try to reduce your dose, space your injections, stop entirely, and within weeks, maybe months, the food noise comes roaring back. Not a whisper, but a roar. Okay, people described it as being right back where they started. Many people feel like it's worse, and I can explain that later. The cravings, the constant thinking about food, the feeling of fighting your own brain every single day. And research backs this up. Most people who stop GLP-1s regain a significant portion of their weight. Studies show around 2/3 or more comes back within a single year or two. But it's not just the food noise. There's something else that people told me that almost nobody talks about: the mood changes. People described feeling flat, emotionally dulled, like the medication quieted the food noise but took some of their joy with it. This isn't well studied yet in clinical trials, but I'm hearing patients report this. And when they tried to stop or reduce, the emotional swings just hit as hard as the cravings. This isn't something that you see in most YouTube videos about Ozempic, but it's real, and it caught people completely off guard. And then there's the restart problem. People who stopped and then went back on. Multiple people told me independently that it didn't feel the same it did the second time. They described a weaker quieting of the food noise and slower results. One person put it like this: not as effective by a long shot. And that matters if you've built your entire weight management strategy around this medication. So why does this happen? Here's what I explained to our patients. GLP-1s can genuinely improve insulin resistance while you're on them, but if the underlying drivers aren't addressed, those improvements, they often fade when the medication is reduced or stopped. The medication was managing the problem, but it wasn't solving it permanently on its own. And when that support changes, appetite and metabolic risk factors often drift back toward baseline. And that can fuel hunger, fat storage, and weight regain. The medications was holding the door closed, but the pressure behind that door, it never went away. Now, I want to hear from you on this particular question here. Drop your current GLP-1 situation in the comments. Let me know what you're on, what you're comfortable sharing on, what dose, and what has this journey been like for you as far as dosing. And I'll jump in because I do respond to every single comment with exactly what we would tell our patients in a similar situation. Here's what fascinated me. Out of all the people that I talked to, there was a smaller group who didn't regain, who actually kept it off. And what they did was almost the opposite of what everybody else tried. And once you see their pattern, you can copy this, okay? So the ones who kept it off, they didn't have a secret medication. They didn't have better genetics. What they had was a different strategy, a better one. And once you see it, you can't unsee it, all right? The first thing they did, they prioritized protein from day number one. Not, I'll try to eat more chicken. I mean, deliberate strategic protein targeting, high amounts of protein, 1 gram per pound of target body weight. While everyone else was writing 800, 900 calories and celebrating that the scale was going down fast, this group, they were losing weight at a slower rate, but they were protecting their precious muscle because they understood that muscle is the engine that keeps the metabolism running. Lose the muscle and you're dismantling the very thing that keeps the weight off when the medication changes. The second thing, resistance training. Not hours of cardio, not walking 10,000 steps, although that's great if you have time to do that as well. A real resistance training plan focused on building strength and reducing muscle loss. This group treated the gym like it was part of their prescription, and in our clinic, that's how we treat it, okay? The third thing, and this was what separated them from almost everybody else, they stayed on the lowest effective dose and they built everything around it. I'm gonna say that again for the people in the back. They stayed on the lowest effective dose. While other people were chasing higher doses for faster results, this group was doing the opposite. They were building such a strong metabolic foundation that they needed less medication over time, not more. Some worked with their prescribers to move forward to lower maintenance doses over time because their body was increasingly doing the work on their own. The research on these long-term low-dose strategies is still emerging, but the clinical patterns that we're seeing are very encouraging. I'm gonna be honest, I don't need research to confirm that using a lower dose when you're not diabetic to control your hunger is a safe and viable option. That's silly and asinine to think that we have to wait for that. And here's the concept that ties all of this together. The medication is powerful on its own. It lowers appetite, it improves your metabolism, but what you build around it determines how well it works and how lasting those results are. I call it the Amplifier Concept. All right. And if you've been building insulin signaling through protein resistance training, sleep optimization, stress management, the medication amplifies a body that's healing. It works with you. But if you've been crash dieting, losing muscle, ignoring the foundation, well, the medication amplifies a body that's breaking down. Same medication, completely different outcomes. The difference is what you built underneath it. And that's why people who did the metabolic work needed less medication, had better results, spent less money, and kept the weight off. Okay. And the people who skipped the foundation, they needed more medication. They had worse results. They spent more money and they regained when anything changed. Now, you're going to want to work with your healthcare providers on the specifics, especially the dose changing and building out your protocol. But even if you're not ready for that yet, understanding this amplifier concept will change how you think about your entire GLP-1 journey. And that's what brings me to the conversation that nobody is having with you right now. Here's the truth. Everything that I just walked you through, the system traps, the beliefs that burn people, the maintenance reality, the foundation that actually protects you, most people are navigating all of that alone. With a prescription and a Reddit thread, no plan for when access changes, no strategy for protecting their muscle, no one monitoring whether they're building insulin signaling or accidentally destroying it. No roadmap for maintenance. And that's the conversation that nobody's having with you now. Not the person writing the prescription, not the internet. Nobody is sitting down and saying, hey, here's how we can connect the pieces. And here's your plan tailored for you for every phase of this journey. And just so you know, that's exactly what we do. If you're on the GLP-1 and you don't have a plan for your foundation, your maintenance, your dosing strategy, or what happens when something changes, you can either text them on the screen or you can check out the link in the description and you'll get to speak with one of our patient advocates. They're going to walk through your history, what you've tried, what's working and what's not, and your long-term goals. They're going to give you an overview of what it's like to work with me, our coaches, our medical team, and they're going to walk through programs and pricing so that you can see what long-term success actually looks like. Now, obviously, nutrition is such an important concept, and there's probably foods that you're eating right now that you think are healthy that are actually destroying your GLP-1 results. So if you haven't already, check out this video right here because I describe and break down the foods that your doctors or nutritionists are probably telling you to eat more of, but it's why you're feeling bloated and crappy. We'll see you guys later.